Alexander Ovechkin makes history passing Wayne Gretzky. The Toronto Maple Leafs are getting hot at the right time and shooting for first place. And the Anaheim Ducks continue to improve. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. It is great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Capitals, Dan Holmi. And Dan, history was made on Sunday. Alexander Ovechkin passing Wayne Gretzky to be the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. Talk to me about that moment.
Beyond excited. I mean, as you can imagine, this is something that has been spoke about for years now. And it's interesting how everything has changed just this past offseason. We're talking about if he could do it under this current contract. So for him to finally get it out of the way, it's a big thing for him. It'll be interesting to see how he plays going forward. The only down part of it, I guess, is that he didn't get to do it at home at Cap One Arena. But ultimately, beyond excited, elated for Alex Ovechkin and the team in general.
I really have to say, I like the way the NHL and the Capitals handled this moment. The game stopped. Gretzky showed class. Gary Bettman showed class. Ovechkin showed class. I just think the NHL handled this moment very, very well.
I think so as well. You know, there was part of me that was concerned about, well, are they going to let them actually celebrate? I know it had been determined here for some time, but to your point there, I think that they handled the pre-planning well and, you know, gave him his moment because there's not a lot of these moments. You know, I think a lot of people that are watching or listening to the show maybe weren't alive when Gretzky got his record so many years ago. And he's held on to that for so many years. That's one of the things I talk about is that we're seeing this in real time. That's what's cool to me. When we look at Gretzky, it's some old grainy archival footage that this should be crystal clear. And like a lot of major life events for me, I'll never forget where I was when I found out it happened.
I mean, Gretzky's record stood for 31 years. That's
Crazy.
A lifetime for a lot of people as of right now. You wonder how long Alex Ovechkin will hold on to this record, but what does setting this record, the all-time goals record, say about Alexander Ovechkin?
Well, what it says to me is it's about tenacity and his will to win. You take a look at what he did last season. There was a lot of people that were skeptical. They were hard on him that despite all that he's accomplished, that he had a rough start to his season. And already the insiders were saying that he was fat, that he was washed, that Father Time is undefeated and all these other things. And you take a look at him. He did get off to that slow start last season. 9 goals at the All-Star break. Went to Dubai, rode around on a camel, came back, and finished the season with 31 goals, which, to be fair here, was a bit of dip in production, what he's used to doing. But all things considered, he found a way to dig deep and get it done. Where we really saw it pay off was this past summer. He spoke about that he's 39 years old, or he was 39 years old in camp there, that he doesn't train the same way that he did when he was 27 years old. I'm 48 years old myself here. And one of the things that I find in life is sometimes the mind is willing, but the body is weak. I'll go out and play softball or something like that with my kids. So I think that Alex Ovechkin realize that, you know, you have to take a different tactic that, like I say, you don't train the same way that you do when you're 27 years old. So he put the work in over the summer, came out a man on a mission, and has played lights out all season. So that's the big thing. And then you take a look at what he did at the All-Star break this season. He didn't get crazy and go overseas or do anything like that. He went to Miami. He trained really hard because he knew what was at stake. He knows that he is under contract this season, the following season, and then after that, it's a bit murky. So I think he wanted to make hay while the sun shines, as they say, catch and pass Gretzky, and maybe do something unthinkable and win a Stanley Cup, something that was unthinkable this past offseason.
No doubt about that. Where does this put Alex Ovechkin in the pantheon of all-time great hockey players?
For me, of course, I'm a bit of a homer. I'm drinking the Capitals Kool-Aid. I think that he's the greatest. There are certain metrics that would say that Gretzky is better still in certain aspects, but being the greatest goal scorer, and we could go into the weeds a little bit talking about era adjusted goals and all of those kind of things. That Alex Ovechkin in a lot of ways is a better netminder or a better goal scorer, because you take a look at the netminders of old. I'm talking Gretzky era. There wasn't the real butterfly style a whole lot back then. It was just a shot on net, and they kind of just flailed at the puck. And and then you take a look at Ovechkin. He's getting it done where the netminders are taller, their pads are bigger, all of these kind of things. My detractors would say that when Gretzky was playing, they were playing with primarily wood sticks. So you take a look at it. For me, if you're factoring in the era adjusted aspect of it, for me, he is the greatest goal scorer for one. But for me, as a Capitals fan, he is the greatest NHL player ever.
What does this mean emotionally for the Washington Capitals? I mean, they've been trying to downplay it to whatever extent, but there's obviously been a focus here of get Ovi the record. Their playoff spot is more or less wrapped up. How does the team respond to all of a sudden this being in their rearview mirror?
Well, there's a couple different ways of looking at it. I think that Alex Ovechkin was perhaps distracted based on this whole goal. But as far as the rest of the roster is, I think maybe it was a welcome distraction. So the spotlight wasn't shined directly on them if they were playing well, if they were playing poor. Now we got that off our back. Now it is Capitals full go. How are we going to perform after getting swept in the playoffs last year? That's the big thing. That they're in a great position, the biggest turnaround that we've ever seen, where they were the last team to qualify, now the first team to qualify. And, will only take you so far. And a little bit later, we'll talk about what that means going forward. But you take a look at the Capitals, I think that it's the pressures on them to perform. You take a look at the moves that were made this past summer. I'm talking Pierre-Luc Dubois, Logan Thompson, Chychrun, all these kind of guys. These moves that former GM Brian McClellan said were risky moves have really paid dividends. Tell me if you had that on your bingo card when you found out that Pierre-Luc Dubois was coming to the Capitals, and he would be one of the biggest assets, the biggest pickups all season. Jacob Chychrun, Logan Thompson, seeing a bounce back from what he had with Vegas. So all things considered, I think that it is a good thing. And now there's not the distraction. All minds must be set on doing great things in the playoffs. It's the Stanley Cup final, or it's nothing for me.
Capitals now 5-4-1 in their last 10. Their play has been a little bit uneven. How important is it for them to finish strong and get playing better hockey before the playoffs get underway?
You take a look at it. The last time the Capitals played the Hurricanes here not long ago, Rob Brindamore said, well, what are they playing for anyway? What do they care? And subsequently, the Hurricanes mopped the floor with the Capitals. There's a lot at stake. This is a time to tune up the engine, if you will. You don't want to go on a long road trip and find 100 miles down the road that your car's not up for it. The Capitals want to find out what is wrong with the team right here, right now. And I think that this team has been operating on positive vibes. You hear a lot about different things that aren't quantifiable, like the chemistry in the locker room is really great and all those kind of things. You got to think that that's probably because the team is winning. Maybe not the case if they weren't. That the things that aren't working now, I'm talking primarily their struggles on special teams, primarily the power play in particular, that those are the things that are going to get drawn into focus. The people that are everydayers of the Locked On Capitals, I have spoke about all season, that special teams are important. Especially in the latter part of the season, you can get away with having subpar PK and PP. But now when the rubber meets the road, you got to make the most of your golden opportunities, scoring goals on the power play and killing off those penalties. That those are going to be the big things for the Capitals to have success if they want to make a deep push. Because I remember last season and I was happy that they made it to the playoffs, but getting swept, that left a sour taste in my mouth. That is for sure.
How fitting was it that this record-setting goal came from his favorite spot, more or less, on the power play, on the one-timer, rather than an empty net or a weird deflection or something like that?
Not an empty netter. That's one of the things, and it means a lot to answer your question that it was very fitting that that's where he has scored more goals than any place, was near where he normally scores all of them there, the dot at the left circle there, or the left dot there. It was big, and, there was a lot of chatter out there from a lot of hockey people trying to diminish what he has done, that, he's scored the most empty net goals and all of these kind of things. And one of the things that's been said is he told Spencer Carberry, in a recent game here, he goes, "No, I don't want an empty netter, so don't do it." And John Carlson and Dylan Stroman, these different kind of guys, are like, "Ovi, you want the puck?" He's like, "No, I only want it if it's fair and square, if you will." And Gretzky, he said about it, he didn't really care. Of course he doesn't care, but I think for him it's about pride. I think he didn't want to have it feel like stolen valor, if you will. But I think it's a good thing, and I'm ultimately very happy that he didn't get it an empty net goal and got it, like I say, fair and square. I wouldn't have thought anything less if he did, because you take a look at it, say there are, and there's a decent amount of empty net goals in there. He has still scored a lot of goals that weren't empty netters.
No question. No question. All right, Dan, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find the podcast on all the big platforms, Apple, Spotify, also available on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps.
All right, Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that situation where you need to hire like yesterday. The pressure is on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed Sponsored Jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Leafs, David Morassutti. And David, the Leafs, 4 wins in a row. They're getting hot at the right time. What's been the reason for this recent run?
I just think right now this team is forging their identity. I know it's a cliche that gets thrown out quite a bit, but I think this team is totally locked in on their team goal right now. And they realize that it's going to be kind of everything coming together at the right time. Now, there's been a bit of bumps along the way, but yeah, the last 4 games, this team has really shown its form, especially the last 2 games. A big one against the Florida Panthers where they win that one, kind of showing everybody that, yes, they can beat the Panthers. They can beat one of the heavyweights in that division. And then you got a desperate Columbus Blue Jackets team that's had the Leafs number in the other 2 games they played this season. Like, when you play a team like that that's got to throw the kitchen sink at you, the Leafs did not phase them one bit. They took care of that pretty handily. So I think right now they're realizing this is the time of year where you got to start, building your form heading into the playoffs.
You mentioned they're finding their identity. What is their identity?
Well, I think part of it has to be playing sound defense, right? Not allowing they got a little carried away, on the California road trip against San Jose. They were playing very lazy defense, trying to score and not think about the details and helping the goaltender out. Against the Kings, it's sort of reawoken that identity of, if you're going to go out in the playoffs, you got to play tight checking hockey. You got to find a way to beat a team that's going to play that style. So, shot blocking, reduce the number of shots that are coming in on your net, and get those timely goals, power play, special teams. So there's been a kind of a mix of things. I wouldn't point to one thing. Goaltending's been good. Yes, it's been good for the majority of the season. Special teams has really picked up. Like the Leafs power play has been a real big positive for them after it was looking absolutely dreadful to start the year. And, depth is starting to kick in with the scoring, which we were wondering if that was going to be something they could rely on. It looks like potentially like this is a year where your depth guys can step up for you.
You got a 3-team race right now for first place in the Atlantic. How important is it for the Leafs to finish in first place?
You know what? The last time they finished first place in a division, it was 2020, 2021. But that was also a year where it was the all-Canadian division, a bit of an asterisk on that season. In the last 87 years, they had only won the division twice. That year, in the COVID year, and then 1999-2000. And it wasn't even called the Atlantic Division at that point. It was the Northeast Division. So in this new format, the Leafs have never won a division. So it would be significant for them to do it. It brings two thoughts in my mind to this. One, the last God knows how many years that they have been in this dreaded playoff format, which I have never liked, contrary to what Gary Bettman has to say about it. No, this is the time of year where the Leafs matchup in the first round was already locked in. They had already known it was either going to be the Bruins or the Lightning in the first round. That to me, it kind of, the team kind of went in a bit of a lull where it's like, yeah, we know what we're going to do. We're just going to make sure we get in the playoffs healthy. And there was little things that were kind of creeping in, and the team wasn't playing like a team ready for the playoffs. Now it's like, well, we can win the division. Let's dictate our playoff fate a little bit more. Let's give ourselves home ice in the first 2 rounds, which they, again, have not done. Well, first off, getting past round 1 is the first. I just think this is giving them that focus to say, job's not done. Let's go win the division. Let's make life easy on ourselves and give ourselves every advantage possible that this team has not had in such a long time. I think that's why the division title means so much, because it's one of those things that's been missing through this whole Matthews-Marner era. They have not done it. So see if they can do it.
How much pressure is there on this team based on the contract situation and what the future may hold for this roster to get it done this year?
Well, I think when you got Matthews and Nylander locked in, the Tavares-Marner situation, that's been talked about in full length, especially the Marner one. You do want to give yourself the best chance. I feel like out of all the years, this team really has that potential. And yeah, there's no guarantees that you're going to be able to have this identical roster coming back. Now, yes, the cap is going up, so you could potentially try to bring as much of it back. But again, there is no guarantees. There's a lot of questions about Marner's future and what he's going to do. John Tavares is having a season to remember, and that dollar figure could be getting expensive for this team. But it seems like he's one of the ones that's consistently said he wants to be back. So I just think with the opportunity right now, this is like, if the Leafs don't take advantage of this year, it is going to be a massive disappointment. And I think less so about the future of the players on the team and the future of things within the organization. Because, the Leafs have a new CEO of the ownership group that owns the team. He wants to see results. He's not going to want to see another first round exit. And there's a president that's been here that he didn't hire. So Brendan Shanahan right now, he could be the one that has a lot of attention paid to him and a lot of the, I wouldn't say blame, but the crosshair, he'd be in the crosshairs for a lot of people who are looking for someone to point to and to say, why hasn't this worked? And, he's been the consistent, right? Kyle Dubas is gone. You bring in Craig Berube, you bring in Brad Treliving, you do something different. One thing hasn't changed, obviously the core, but who assembled the core? Who's the one that ensured that core stayed together? I think Brendan Shanahan has pulled a lot of the strings on that. So I think that's where a lot of the pressure goes to.
Give me an unsung player who's not making a lot of headlines nationwide, but who has really helped the Leafs this year get to where they are right now?
Ooh. I would probably put it to a guy like Anthony Stolarz. You hear a lot about William Nylander. You hear a lot about Tavares, Marner, Matthews. You don't hear a lot about the goaltenders. I do think when you look at how much this Leafs team is paying their goaltenders this year, it is criminal what a team like the Leafs, who have, money out the yank, they are paying their goaltenders this year $3.26 million. Think about that. 3.26 for both their goaltenders combined.
Yeah.
Combined. And I didn't expect this level of play from Anthony Stolarz. And even Joseph Woll, there was the potential for him to do it. We weren't sure if he was going to be able to handle the uptick in minutes and all that stuff. But that goaltending tandem has been, I think, an unsung hero because, it's a decent blue line for this team, but it doesn't have a number one defenseman, right? There isn't that, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes type of defenseman. So the goaltending has really shouldered a lot of it. And I'll throw one other name out there, Bobby McMahon. He's making $1.35 million, and he's hit the 20-goal mark this year.
Who do you think gets the start in game one of the playoffs?
If you ask me today, it's Anthony Stolarz. He got back-to-back starts. When you look at the tandem, you see who does the coaching staff lean to in that chance to get that one extra, that second start to see if he can handle it. And that was Anthony Stolarz, and he had a really good game. He's a veteran. He doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. He doesn't have a lot of experience in total, but I think they really like what he brings to his game. I think the last bit here, he's won his last 4 starts pretty handedly. I think it's last 5 actually pretty handedly. So, I think he's got a good grasp on the job right now. Now, at the same time, I don't think the door is fully closed on Joseph Woll. Again, his playoff experience, while limited, has been spectacular. But I think right now, Anthony Stolarz, his play this year has really shown that he is ready to handle that come game one.
David, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on X at @D_Morassutti, and you can go follow the Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube and on X at Locked On Leafs, as well as on Instagram at Locked On Leafs.
David, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You could track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You could track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. It is my pleasure to welcome to the show for the first time the new host of Locked On Ducks, Kyle Kjer. And Kyle, it's been a pleasant surprise season for the Anaheim Ducks. I think they finished so far higher in the standings than most people expected. What has been the key to the team's surprising progress this year?
Well, thanks for having me, Gil. There's a few things that have been kind of a key to the, I want to say, rebirth of this team. I think a lot of it stems from having a lot of these guys finally kind of in their sophomore, junior seasons. Guys like McTavish, Zegras, Terry's been there for quite a few seasons now, but a lot of these guys are finally getting into their own and really catching on to the winning mentality. I think this season really helped them when they were in that little bit of a chase during February, they finally got to get that experience of games that matter and minutes that matter, and that the littlest things can lead to either being in the playoffs or not being in the playoffs.
How important would it be for this team to get to 82 points and finish with a 500 record or better this year?
It would be absolutely great for them to get to that point. It's a little bit of a uphill battle right now with how they played against Vancouver, but they have the skill set to do so, and they've been playing up against some of the harder teams in the league, and they definitely have that capability. And getting to that 500 level compared to last year, they're already almost 20 points ahead of where they finished last season, and to be able to be at a 500 level pace, it just builds that confidence going into the off season and letting these guys come together and know, hey, we're a competitive team. We're going to have that next step next year. And the prospects that are coming up are absolutely insane right now. Verbeek did a great job with the draft. So there's a lot to look forward to for these players, especially with the 500 season.
Talk to me about Trevor Zegras. His name has been mentioned in trade rumors for so long. He is still an Anaheim Duck. What is keeping his game from blossoming and realizing the great potential that he has?
I think a little bit of the stardom got him at the beginning of his career with kind of getting launched right in with the couple Michigans that he had. And then he was on the cover of NHL, and there's probably a lot just rushing at him at such a young age, but fought a little bit of injury the last couple seasons and then got his first suspension, which of all players, I would not expect Trevor Zegras to have a suspension, especially for a big hit. But I think he's really catching on and learning the 200-foot game, and he's been playing really well since coming back from that injury this year and from the suspension, and really just adhering to Cronin's advice and trying to play a more physical game, a more defensive game. And he's definitely a pass first type player, but when he does get his shot, he's got a wicked shot, and he's been scoring quite a few goals in the last recent games.
Special teams have hurt the Ducks all year long. The power play dead last in the league. The penalty kill is 30th as we record this. What has been wrong with the special teams, and going forward? Obviously, this year is more or less done, but how do you improve on the special teams?
Special teams has definitely been a wash this season, and a big issue is their break-ins. They've not been able to get into the zone and establish a consistent offense once they are in. And when they do get the puck in, finally, they kind of just stick to the perimeter. They're not moving their feet. They're not moving around the back of the net. Like, the puck handler is not moving. They have guys kind of just, they set up the umbrella and they're sticking to that. They seem like they've been trying to hit Vetrano and McTavish with the one-timer and not really getting as much traffic. The last couple power play goals that they actually did score were due to having traffic in front of the net and getting them off the bumper shot. So they definitely need to clog up the middle lanes a little bit more and work on the entry. The entry is so predictable. They've used this little back pass that they've been doing for years now, and it just, everyone knows what to do. You just clog up the neutral zone, guys run into each other, and then you got to either dump and chase or try again. So they definitely need to work on their entries and actually entering with possession.
Who's been the quarterback of the power play?
The quarterback that they've had Lacombe on one unit and then Zellweger on the other, and they're really quick. They know how to get the puck moving and everything. Zellweger sometimes has a little bit of pressure, and you can kind of see ends up losing the puck because he's trying to look at what plays to make, and then he gets a little flustered there. But they got Zegras with Lacombe that usually works the puck on the left side, and then they try to get it to McTavish and suck in the defense. And then that second unit they've been kind of tinkering with. So that first unit, though, has been out there for most of the power play. The second's usually out there for like 10, 15 seconds.
How about the PK?
PK unit, well, they've got Gudis out there right now, and also Lacombe. Lacombe's just been the Swiss Army knife for defense right now. And they had Carlson out there killing, and then Vetrano, he's usually out there as well. The second unit, I'm not 100% sure on who that is without looking up right now. But they just seem to be leaking a power play at least once a game. The Vancouver game was like 3 power play goals that they gave up. It's been absurd. And they did get a couple shorties though. So they hadn't had a shorthanded goal since the beginning of the season, and they got 2 back-to-back recently. So little bright spot there, but overall it's been just painful to watch the special teams. Like, just keep it 5-on-5. Like, you don't even need the extra man or the give up a man.
You talked about some prospects that the team has drafted well. Who do you think out of the prospects, 2 or 3 that have the best chance of making this team next season?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think Tristan Luneau, he's been playing really well down in San Diego. And then they just brought in Sten Solberg from he's Norwegian, but they brought him over from the Swedish Hockey League, and he's fit right in. He's already got a few points and stuff. And then Ian Moore just came from Harvard. He's playing really well as well. He's got 5 points in 7 games. There's a lot of big names down there that are growing. Beckett Seneca, though, I don't know if he's going to be able to be NHL worthy next year or ready, just with his size and kind of his lankiness. But the way he's been lighting up down in juniors with Oshawa has been absurd. He's already got 4 goals in the playoffs, and there are 4 games. And he had only 10 goals last year playing 16 playoff games. So he's just lighting it up. He got like 4 team trophies this year with including best forward, top scorer, and the physical player of the year.
Not bad. Not
no,
bad
he's doing really swell.
What is the most important thing that you think this team needs to do over the offseason?
I think they just need to actually make some movement. The team overall, they have a pretty good setup right now. The core is pretty decent. It's hard to complain about the 4 lines right now, but they need to bring in a bona fide center and a center that's a scorer and can get pucks in the net. That's kind of been their biggest crutch, is having a legitimate shooter. They have a lot of guys that like to pass first. Cutter Gauthier, he's a pretty good shooter, but he just got unlucky at the beginning of the year. I think he was leading the league with most shots without a goal at one point, and they just need to bring in a veteran presence that's going to help get scoring going. And I'm a little concerned about the captain, Radko Gudas. He seems like he's been kind of floundering recently. I do like them bringing in Jacob Trouba. He seems to be fitting in very nicely with the team and not having to be the man anymore. And that the youth that's down in San Diego, with how many defenders they're building up down there, I think there might be some movement in the D core there.
Going to be an interesting offseason, Kyle. I know you'll have it covered every step of the way. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. You can find me on social media at my last name, KJER Talk Sports. That's Car Sports, or Car Talk Sports. That's on Instagram and Twitter. And then Locked On Ducks on Blue Sky. And then you can follow Locked On. Make sure you look up Anaheim Ducks, because you don't want to be following the Oregon Ducks. But Locked On Anaheim Ducks on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you find or listen to any of your podcasts, we're there. And then also we're on the Fire TV. If you look up Anaheim Ducks, you'll find some of our content there.
All right, Kyle, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Gil.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank my guests today. I want to thank Dan Holmi of Locked On Capitals, David Morassutti of Locked On Leafs, and Kyle Kjer of Locked On Anaheim Ducks for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. I host the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, and I co-host the Friday edition along with Rachel Donner. Don't forget, we're here every day, Monday through Saturday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the NHL. And Saturday, we have our weekly Women's Hockey Spotlight with Rachel Donner and Erica L. Ayala. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and thank you so much for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.